want it to be blue like the map is when it comes up, and then when the user mouses over it, it will turn yellow. So to do that, all I have to do is I right-click on it and I say Edit in Adobe Illustrator CS4. So with the CS4 tools, we actually have a very tight round-trip workflow where you can always go back and tweak your design in the CS4 tools. And if you look here in the layers panel, you'll notice that it actually looks really different from that initial scroll bar artwork. That initial scroll bar artwork was just flat vectors, no structure. Here we actually have all the structure the Catalyst needs for that scroll bar, so I don't have to redo all the work of going back, adding the interactions, setting up the thumb and all that stuff. It will merge it back seamlessly, and we'll see how that works. So I'm just going to go ahead and, using the standard gradient editing tools here in Illustrator, I'm going to
wow, you look good with dodging those.
Yeah, very well trained.
Yeah.
Great. Oh, so this one there. And then I'm going to go ahead and grab these two little arrows, and I'm going to also turn those blue. So, type those in. Okay. And now I'm just going to save that out and switch back to Flash Catalyst and say, accept changes. It's that easy.
And what makes this round trip possible is something called FXG. FXG is a graphics format that can be opened and saved by the CS4 tools, and it's also just a subset of MXML. But the beauty of FXG, as NJ showed you, is the fact that you can do your design changes in CS4 and maintain and preserve all the work that you did in Flash Catalyst. So you can iterate on the design and really maintain that kind of workflow throughout the Creative Suite tools and Flash Catalyst.
That's right. So you can see here, if I dive back into this scroll bar, that again, we've actually updated the thumb so that the upstate is blue. All that gradient, that new gradient, has actually been merged into the code for the other states so that it's an efficient working scroll bar now. So that looks pretty good. Now I'm going to do one more thing, which I think is going to be a little bit more interesting interaction. I'm going to switch back to this main state, and I have this little featured tour widget here. I want to turn that into an interactive widget where the user clicks on this arrow to see a little mini-map. So I'm going to select the artwork for that here. And I also have some hidden artwork right now for the map that's going to be on the other side here. So let me select that. It's actually behind that other artwork. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this content and I'm going to convert it into a custom component. Now, up until now, what we've been seeing are components like buttons and scroll bars, these built-in components that have their own built-in behavior. But you can also create a custom component that has just the behavior that you want, so it's fully custom. So I'm going to double-click into that, and I'm going to start off by just showing this textual content here. And now I'm going to duplicate the state. So just like we had pages of the main application that said where the user could go in the application as they interact with it, individual components have states that say how the component looks as the user interacts with the component. So I'm going to go ahead and rename these so they're a little easier to keep track of. And then in the second state here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off this text content and turn on the map content here. So if I click back and forth, you can see that I have my states set up. And now again, if we look down in the timelines panel, you can see that we've automatically created this default sort of simple crossfade effect. But I want something a little more interesting. What we can actually do is we can take advantage of the new 3D effects that are in the Flash Player 10. So I can just add a 3D rotation effect very easily. So I'm going to go here, I'm going to add a 3D rotation to the front content here. And then I'm going to add another one to the back here. And then using the timeline here, it's this very simplified timeline model where I can just slide the effects around and resize them to make sure that they get sequenced and play exactly the same way that I want. And so I can just slide these fades around, slide the rotate, and now I have a 3D flipping widget. Incredible. Okay. So that's looking good, and I'm just going to do one more thing here because I have to actually make this arrow clickable. So I'm going to select it here. And I'm going to say convert it to a button just like we did before. On click, if I transition to the back state. Okay, so now I think we're ready to run the design. So now I've done all this design work in Catalyst, and I can now say File, Run Project. And what we're doing here is under the hood, we're building a SWF. We're building a piece of Flash content, just like all the other tools in the Flash platform do. And now it's popped up here in the browser. I can just click on the arrow, get a nice flip effect. And mouse over this tour finder, you can see the little opacity change there. You can click on it, we get the slide on. I have the scroll bar, I can mouse over it, I can drag it up and down. So it looks like my design's working pretty well.
That looks good, but now how are you going to actually get that to the developer?
So what we're going to do now is, because we've been working on a Flex project this entire time, and as we've created those components and those interactions, we're generating that well-formed Flex MXML code. So I can actually save this Flash Catalyst Flex project out as something called an FXP. An FXP is just a Flex project package which contains all the assets inside of my Flex project. And I can give this FXP file to a developer. The developer can then open this exact same project inside of the next generation of Flex Builder and start adding data or bringing in any logic that they need to on the developer side.
That's right, and they can work back and forth between Flex Builder and Catalyst because they're working on exactly the same project format.
So you get this great workflow, and I think we're going to see that in just a little bit.
Yeah, that's incredible. This I think solves your problem, Agent B. You can now go back and forth, the designers can be involved in building the application, back and forth. Here's the big question though. This is pretty cool stuff. When's it going to be available?
So for those of you that are feeling a little bit brave, we're going to have DVDs of an early preview version of Flash Catalyst after the keynote. It's Mac only, and if you want to wait for something a little bit more full-featured and polished, we're going to be doing an early or a beta release on Lab sometime early in 2009, and that will include both Mac and Windows.
Very good. Thank you, Agents.
Excellent.
Thank you. That's terrific.